Hello and welcome back to another episode of the Gritty Hour. Today I have a very special guest, William Sadler, who is a well-known actor. He's been on Broadway in film, TV. He was in Biloxi Blues, right, on Broadway, and he was in Die Hard 2, Shawshank Redemption, The Green Mile. He's been on a bunch of TV shows, and he also is a musician, which we're also going to talk about today. So, welcome to the Gritty Hour, William.
Thank you. Thank you, Tom. It's good to be here.
It's a pleasure to have you on. So, as I mentioned in the intro, you were on Broadway, you were in film, you were in TV. I'm just curious, which of those mediums do you find the best to work in?
Um, well, I think I spent the first 11 years of my career doing theater. And so I got very used to that. I got really accustomed to that and good at that. And then it took me two or three movies to get used to working for a camera. But I have to say now, I guess doing film is now that I understand the power of the lens, the power of the camera, and the reach of movies, which is extraordinary. I mean, they go all over the world. And the things you can do, on film that are difficult to do on stage. It's just from an acting point of view, it's because the camera is so close, or can be so close, and you simply cannot lie in in front of a camera.
Right.
You have to be centered and honest, and as honest as you can be, and it just picks up the tiniest thought. You can all you have to do is let the thought cross your mind, and the audience goes, look, oh crap, he knows, you know.
Yeah, it shows up on your face, maybe.
You really
Yeah.
don't have to do anything.
Right.
And there's a tremendous freedom in that. Not to mention the fact that you can always go back and do that little section again, and do it again, and play with it, and rework it. Which on stage you get one shot. Every night you get one shot, and the theater offers different, there are different pluses to it. You hear that audience's response immediately.
Do you get an adrenaline? I'm sorry. Do you get like an adrenaline rush on stage that you don't get in front of the camera?
You get an adrenaline rush. You get stage fright. You're backstage, pacing, checking your props, pacing some more, going through your lines, pacing some more. Throwing up in your dressing room. I mean, the nerve, because it's a tightrope. It's in Broadway, it's 1,100 seat theater, and they all paid, they paid their money. They want to see the same show that they read about 6 months ago.
Right. And when you're playing like say you were in Biloxi Blues on Broadway, right?
Yeah.
That's an everyday occurrence. Plus, sometimes they have two shows on Sundays or something like that, right?
Eight shows a week, two shows Sunday and two shows Wednesday.
So do you get the same like stage fright and adrenaline every show?
Yeah.
That's interesting. Yeah.
Well, I mean, you get better at handling it. You get better at, pushing it down, but there's something about that adrenaline, usually makes it for a better show.
Right.
You go further, you give them more,
Right. So tell us a little bit about how you go from Broadway to Shawshank Redemption.
You can't get there from here.
There's no roads that lead one to the other.
Well, I did a year and a half on Broadway with Shawshank, and then the very next movie that I did was Project X. with Matthew Broderick, who was in Biloxi Blues with me.
Right.
And so there was a natural connection, and I slid right over, and that was the first movie that I did for Fox, with Helen Hunt and Stephen Lang, and a lot of chimps. And I killed all the chimps in the movie. I was the villain in that. And then I think Hard to Kill happened, with Steven Seagal, and I learned even more about working for a camera. And then I worked with Dennis Hopper on a movie called The Hot Spot in Texas, and Dennis was great, a great mentor, a great acting mentor. He'd done, dozens and dozens of films and Apocalypse Now, and
right. He was a director.
He's fantastic, and he was directing this thing.
Right.
In Texas. It's like Don Johnson and Virginia Madsen and myself and Jennifer Connelly, and but I was I was still really, really green and learning. Just teach me everything you can from everybody, the camera guys, the grips, the electric,
right.
And there is a learning curve, but eventually, I did an audition for the very first episode of Tales from the Crypt, and they sent me in to read for the cop at the end of the show, who has one line. It's a half-hour show for HBO it was the very first episode. They had never done this before, called Tales from the Crypt. And I read the one line, and I said to Karen Ray, I said, "So what's up with the lead role in this thing?" And she said, "Oh, they want, they're going to get, they need a big name. They want
something to sell tickets, right?
Yeah, John Malkovich, or they're looking for somebody with a name." And I said, "Oh," and I left, and I got halfway across the parking lot, and she stuck her head out the window of the office and said, "Bill, come back here." And she gave me the sides, this big long monologue speech. Said, "Come back on Monday. I'll put you on tape, but slick your hair, grease your hair and black out your teeth, because you can't, he's not cute. He's got to look
rough around the edges,
rougher than you look." So I came back in and I did the audition, and she showed it to the producers, Walter Hill, Bob Zemeckis, Joel Silver, and anyway, and they and I got the job, and now all of a sudden I'm playing the lead killer, this executioner who gets fired from the prison where he works, and he goes off. He sits in courtrooms and watches for people to getting off on technicalities, and then he arranges for them to have accidents. Right, he's going to keep right on electrocuting people. And he's very funny. He's kind of got this wry sense of humor, and very dark gallows humor. Anyway, I did it. They loved it. The very next thing Joel Silver is doing was Die Hard 2. And he said, "Wow, that was, how about Sadler for the villain in Die Hard 2?" And they said, "Okay." And then one of the writers on Tales from the Crypt was Frank Darabont. And he came up to me on the set and said, "I'm going to do this movie called Rita Hayworth and Shawshank Redemption, a Stephen King story." And I said, "Sure, good." Whatever.
That was the working title at the time?
Yeah, that's the name of the novella.
Okay. Yeah.
Rita Hayworth and Shawshank Redemption is the title. And and then that movie came to pass, and I ended up doing that. I did Trespass for Walter Hill. I did Demon Knight for Joel Silver. I did Die Hard 2 for Joel Silver. I did 2 more movies with Frank Darabont. So I can point to that one little moment when I said, "What's up with that role?" I said to the casting lady, to Karen Ray, and she said, "Oh, they need a name," and I left. But I asked, and she said, "What's the harm? I'll put them on tape. What's the worst that can happen? If I don't like it, I won't show it to them. It won't go any further." So she was great, and she changed. It's not often you can point to one moment and say that was the beginning of almost everything else in my career.
Right.
Bounced off of that thing.
Your trajectory changed at that moment. Yeah.
Yeah, exactly.
Yeah.
Exactly.
And,
so I hope that answered your question.
It does. And anybody that takes a pedestrian look at your career can admit that you're very prolific. I remember you told me, full disclosure, we know each other through a mutual friend, Toby, who we all live in the Millbrook area, Millbrook, New York. And
Tobias Ricciardelli.
Tobias, yes. He's got an extra R in his last name, which drives me up the wall. But I remember you were coming into, because I own the Millbrook Antique Center, and I remember you coming into the shop to tell me about an Irish Spring commercial you were in. If you want to I thought it was a funny story. If you want to tell it again.
I had just gotten my SAG card in New York City, and I auditioned for to be the Irish Spring Man. You remember the Irish Spring commercials?
That's madly, yes, but I like it too.
And I like it too.
Aye.
A foam and fragrant lather. And I knew a great Irish accent, and so I got the job. I got the job, and that day, SAG went on strike. Boom. So you can't work. You can't. And I mean, you could scab, and but I had just joined the union. I didn't want to scab, and I didn't want to start my union career by
crossing the line
by doing that.
Yeah.
But at the same time, and I kept getting phone calls from the producers saying, "Listen, if you can't do it, we're going to recast this thing. We're going to go to Ireland and cast it at the Dublin Theatre. We found a guy," and they did. They had in fact found a guy, but when he took his shirt off to do the shower scene, he had a boat tattooed on his chest, so they couldn't use him. So they took it anyway. Long story, even longer.
But he probably did have a real brogue, though, right?
Oh yeah, no, I'm sure he sounded great. But we ended up doing it. But by the time the SAG strike was over and I could say yes and we could go, it was the first and only Irish Spring commercial ever shot in Ireland. They all been shot in New Jersey or someplace,
Right, yeah.
Never or Millbrook,
Yeah.
They never shot them. They never went to Ireland to do it. And but we went to Ireland, and we went in the dead of winter. So we get there, and it's beautiful. Ireland is beautiful. I mean, really beautiful.
Yeah.
But it's raining and it's gray and it's overcast, and it doesn't look like that sunny thing that they'd sold the client on. So we had to wait around. We had to wait around for the sun to come out and for it to stop raining, so we could shoot this thing. And finally, like a week went by, and another week went by, and finally they're ripping their hair out because this is expensive. This was supposed to be a day and a half of filming,
right,
and go home. So finally, they put a tarp out in front of a little cottage, and they stuck flowers in the ground, and they brought in all these sheep, and they set up big lights to make it look sunny, right? And it was a musical thing. I had to sing and dance, right? So they started the playback. He's bursting out with confidence. He's feeling so fresh and clean. So, lady, you better look out tonight. Hey, I'm feeling my Irish spring. He's feeling his Irish spring. And right. And so I come bouncing out of the house singing that. And the sheep, of course, took off in every direction, the ducks and the sheep and the goats, and cut. Bring them back. They bring them back in. Now they bring all these wet sheep back in underneath the tarp. And they tethered their feet together and they staked them to the ground, right? They drove stakes into the ground. So now they can't move their legs. And they did the same thing with the ducks and the geese. They tied their little duck feet together and they staked them to the ground. And ready, roll sound, playback, and action. He's bursting out with confidence. He's feeling so fresh. I come bouncing out of the house, and the sheep, now that they can't move their feet, they just fell over. They just went, and the ducks are laying on their backs, going, wah, 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 wah. They can't fly away. They can't run away. They're sure they're all going to be killed. Cut.
That's funny.
We were there for 3 weeks, and there was no. I mean, we shot bits and pieces and chunks and things, but none of it ever cut together to make a movie, to make a TV commercial. It was
right.
Like the day we did the shower scene. I'm standing there in a pair of wet rubber pants with rubber boots, and I'm on a bridge in Limerick, Ireland, and there's this little drizzle of warm water falling on my head, and I'm lathering up. And it's the part of the commercial where you go, ha ha, that foam and fragrant lather that tingles you clean, and 2 deodorants that work wonders for your confidence. And I like it too, right? But I'm freezing to death. I'm rubbing this soap on my chest. There are little children. It started snowing in the middle of that take. It started snowing. Kids all around me laughing at this stupid American standing on a bridge, rubbing soap on his chest until my nipples turned purple. And that was it. That was the.
Well, it's their own fault for filming a commercial for Irish Spring in the winter.
Well, yeah. Well, they were, they had talked the client into saying, they said, nothing looks like Ireland. It's gorgeous. It's green and beautiful and so on and so on. And it is in the summer,
but not in January. Yeah,
not in January.
Yeah, that's funny.
Yeah,
but I use Irish Spring today, so maybe it's because of you. Who the hell knows?
Who knows? Well,
so in preparation for this, when we last met in the town there, you said, "I bet you're going to ask me what it's like to work with Morgan Freeman." So I might as well ask you, what's it like to work with Morgan Freeman?
What a bastard! Morgan's lovely. Again, I was the youngster. I mean, I was among the youngsters on that set. Mm-hmm. Morgan had done more movies than me and had been around a lot longer. And he was great fun to work with. We used to sing doo-wop songs together, and
I don't think I've ever heard him sing, but I picture that he can. Yeah.
We had I had a tooth problem. I had to go to a dentist before I showed up on the set, and they had numbed my face and given me something for the pain and so on, and I was like half in the bag. And I showed and I'm sitting there at the dining hall scene across the table from Morgan, and he's looking at me, and he's looking like this. And he says, "You're stoned, aren't you?" I said, I said, huh? "I'm fine. What are you talking about?" I was
All numbed up. Yeah.
all numbed up.
Well,
He was lovely. He
hopefully
was
you didn't
great.
have a line in that scene, did you?
No, I don't think I did, but
Mm.
it was. But he was lovely to work with. He's one of those actors. It's like you can't see the gears turning in his head, and that it's just that's just a gift when actors are able to do that. Um, I mean, it's one of the things I watch for. If I can see the gears turning, then they haven't quite done enough homework. It should be um,
Natural,
effortless.
effortless. Yeah.
Yeah, they're just listening and talking. That's all. They're not acting.
Well, he has such a distinctive voice, and I've heard AI versions of his voice,
I
which
hate.
is
I,
pretty scary. And it brings me to my next question about AI.
yeah,
Uh, you know, you've been in the industry for quite some time. How do you think AI is going to affect Hollywood in general?
I suspect it's going to put a lot of people out of work.
Mm,
It'll. I mean, in the same way that the. Um, I don't know. I heard something the other day that I forget where I read it that by 2026, which is next year,
hmm
90% of the things done in Hollywood will be AI,
Yeah.
which is which is alarming because that's I mean you don't you won't need actors anymore. You won't need you know we can if we can steal Morgan Freeman's voice, then um, and they use AI to write scripts now.
Yeah.
I don't know how good they are, but it's cheaper. And my guess is because it's cheaper and faster, and you don't have to hire those pesky writers, and you don't have to hire those pesky actors who they charge money, they want to be paid. You got to fly them in, put them in a hotel, pay their, you know, Screen Actors Guild wants something for their pension fund and something for their insurance and so on. It's like,
Right. Right.
and they were already doing it with extras and atmosphere actors on movie sets, where that, and it was one of the reasons we had the big strike recently, was an actor would show up to do his day, one day as an extra on this film. They'd make him sign a contract saying we can use your image in anything else we do,
hmm
and or anywhere else in the movie, or and they can lift that face and put it on another body, or lift that body and put it in another situation,
Yeah.
and so they pay this this actor uh whatever the daily rate, and then they don't need him anymore.
Mm.
We don't
The,
need him. We don't need.
the analogy I always use, have been using, is the paralegal. Like most law firms write legal briefs now. Well, AI generates them. You know, and I'm thinking
Really,
this. I'm thinking the same thing will occur over there in Hollywood. You know, and in many other industries.
I think it's. I don't think it's a. I suppose it's inevitable because it's. Uh, I mean, you can fight the trend, but um, it's
Well,
cheaper, it's easier, and it's cheaper.
yeah.
And there was always going to be producers and people out there saying, well, I can't tell the difference.
Mm,
They can't. The great unwashed can't tell the difference. The people can't tell the difference.
right.
What difference does it make?
Yeah.
I don't need to hire a makeup a team of makeup artists, if I can generate that scar on his face with AI,
Hmm.
or you know,
It's it's a little scary how fast it's advancing. You know that you can go on YouTube and see over the last 3 years an AI generated version of Will Smith eating spaghetti. It sounds simple, but if you look at it from 3 years ago versus they do one a year, and if you look at this
yeah.
year's, it's actually looks like Will Smith sitting down and eating spaghetti, and it's not. It's an AI generated image of Will Smith.
Well, now put your producer hat on.
Hmm.
Do you know how much Will Smith charges for a movie?
No.
I don't either.
Yeah.
And I don't, and I can't, and I'm sure he's expensive and worth every penny of it, because his name and his face will put asses in the seats and
Right.
sell, you know,
Hmm.
you're likely to have a big summer blockbuster or whatever with worldwide appeal. Well, what if you could get him? What if, what if you can put him in your movie, and I don't have to pay anybody but my cousin who knows how to work this AI thing, you know?
Yeah.
Uh, I don't have to fly him around. I don't have to put him in hotels. I don't
Yeah.
have to put up with, temperamental, ooh, he won't come out,
Hmm.
whatever.
Yeah.
If I'm a producer, that's, I mean, I'm trying to keep it real, and I want to make the best product that I can, the best film that I can. I've already got millions sunk into this project, right?
Yeah.
And 5 years of my life and so on. Um,
The temptation will be there.
yeah,
Yeah.
I can get Bruce Willis to, who
Hmm.
can't, he can't do it anymore himself. But if you could write another Die Hard film and put Bruce Willis in it and just take the money and run,
Yeah.
wouldn't wouldn't you? Or would you? I mean,
There is
I
there
I
is a
pose
moral.
this question as it's a
There is a
rhetorical
moral
question.
aspect to it that maybe or maybe not supersedes the monetary value of it. I don't know.
Well,
Well,
I would suggest that you should pay the people whose images you're stealing, um,
yeah.
or voices you're stealing. That it would seem, you know,
Yeah.
at the very least, they should be compensated for that. Um, and maybe you need their approval. Maybe you need their permission to use your likeness.
Hmm.
Uh,
Yeah.
right. Um,
It seems like we're at the cusp of it. I'll be interested to see how it all fleshes out.
yeah.
And I use that word intentionally because you still need a human being to, like you said about the nuances in acting, someone professional like yourself. I don't know if it can be replicated in
They're getting
AI. Yeah.
but they're getting better and better. Each generation is more realistic,
Hmm.
more detail, harder to tell. You're right, and you've seen it.
Yeah.
Um,
But you still remain prolific in your work and
Thank you.
hopefully many,
I
many,
try,
many years to come. But
I try to.
before we move on, I right behind you, I do see the neck of a guitar.
Yes. Oh
Yes,
yes.
and I don't know how many people who know your career know that basically you're an accomplished musician as well. You compose your own songs, and I think during COVID, if I was trying to do my due diligence during COVID shutdown, you did a lot of musical things.
I did.
Yeah,
Well, we could. No one could go anywhere,
right.
and I I started. I'd been writing songs and singing songs and writing songs for ages and ages, and I finally decided I better get these recorded, or they're just going to disappear with me, and which might not be the worst thing that ever happened, but it would be. I wouldn't, you know.
Hmm.
I think they're fun songs, and
Well,
so
what,
I put together an album
okay.
called the kitchen tapes that's available. You can go to therealwilliamsadler.com.
Mm.
And if you go to therealwilliamsadler.com, you can click on the music clicker thingy. That's a technical term.
Mm-hmm.
And if you purchase that, the kitchen tapes by William Sadler, through that, the money all goes to St. Jude's.
Oh, very nice.
So I don't make anything. In fact, I lost. In fact, it cost quite a bit to make the album, and now it's just making money for St. Jude's, which is my pleasure. I have no desire to be a recording star.
Mm-hmm.
I have fun. I like singing the songs. I like playing them. I like writing them, and I like sharing them. But I already have a career. I'm more than happy with the one that I have spent so many years working.
Yeah, but I did check out some of your work. You are talented though, so it's worth continuing. Even it's for as I do this podcast. I always call this podcast. I do it for shits and giggles. Even if you pursue your music for shits and giggles, it's well worth pursuing.
That'd be a great name for my next album.
Shits and giggles.
Shits and giggles.
Yeah, my invoice is on its way. I would call it folk, but maybe you have a better term. Well, what would you consider the genre that you write, the style that you write in?
I think you can call it folk. I think it's I came of age in the folk, during the folk movement and the hootenannies and what have you,
Mm-hmm.
Pete Seeger and Bob Dylan and all the rest of them. And then very quickly slid over into the rock and roll age. I was in a garage band called the Night Riders that
Cool name.
actually rehearsed in a garage in Buffalo, and we played all over the place. And anything that had 3 chords, we could do. Louie Louie, Gloria, Gloria, right? And then I discovered acting, and I set all of that aside for the time being, and went after the acting. And I was, in the last 10 years or so,
Getting back into it. Were you the singer in that band back in the day?
I was one of the singers. Yeah.
Yeah, because you do have a good voice. Yeah.
Well, thank you very
Yeah.
much.
Oh, come on. Come on.
I actually had my voice has gotten better, and I'm a better singer now than I used to be. I used to be too self-conscious, but I auditioned for a musical in New York City one time, like in the 70s or something. It was a musical called History of the American Film, and the casting person called my agent and said, "Bill is a wonderful actor. He should never sing in public." No matter what.
Huh.
And they may have been right at the time, I thought that was a little harsh myself. And
Some of those people get paid to be harsh, I think.
And I thought, and I of course went, "Oh yeah? Yeah, well, watch this."
Well,
Immediately went after singing in public.
do you like Paul Simon?
I love Paul Simon.
Yeah, because I
adore Paul Simon.
got a whiff of Paul Simon while I was listening to you play.
Yeah. Oh, sweet.
Yeah.
Wow. That's a big. That's a nice compliment, because I'm a huge fan.
He's a phenomenal songwriter, isn't he?
His lyrics.
Unbelievable.
And I must say I'm an okay guitar player. My lyrics are where the fun lies. They're fun, they're fun lyrics, or they're romantic, or they're thoughtful, I'm really more, and maybe that's because I spent so many years as an actor dealing with words, Shakespeare and all the rest of it.
Right.
I love I just love playing with the words and the words, the words of the lyrics, and the music is like a delivery mechanism
Hmm.
for the words.
How often do you write? Do you have like moments of inspiration where it breathes through you, or do you sit down and try and work it out?
I I have sat down and tried to work it out. My wife was ill for a couple of years, and I had a lot of time on my hands. I wasn't leaving the house, and 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 you also write. I think when you're in stressful situations or unhappy, that's conducive to writing much more so than when things are going great and you're happy or you're in love or whatever. Uh, as John Prine once said, he's another of my heroes, John Prine.
Other great songwriter, sure.
Oh, please, just uh, the best.
Hmm.
But he said, yeah, of course you write sad songs about, when love gone wrong, because when things are going good, who the hell wants to write a song?
Mm. He's actually not, he's not far off from the truth. It makes a lot of sense to me.
Yeah, you're off
Yeah.
having a good time. We would
Yeah.
sit down and angst over some.
I keep thinking of that song when you're just telling that story. There was a pop hit called "Walking on Sunshine."
Oh yeah, yeah.
Yeah, I can't. The guy must have been miserable when he wrote that song, or the
I
girl,
think it,
whoever the hell wrote that.
I think you mentioned Paul Simon before. I think he even makes fun of the song that he wrote, "Feeling Groovy."
Oh,
Slow,
59th Street Bridge song. Yes.
slow down.
Yeah.
You move too fast.
Yeah. Yeah. Yeah.
It's that.
Well, he's a Tin Pan Alley guy. He's
Yeah,
that's
yeah.
where he's got his start.
But
Uh,
he wrote a song about how groovy he feels, and it's like
it must be embarrassing to him today. Yeah.
he says he sings it when the audience is really bad. If they're not, he'll he'll punish them with it.
Or it's all happening at the zoo. That's the other one. Yeah.
That's right.
So obviously, you're a generous guy. Your career speaks to that. And one of the shits and giggles performances you're going to be doing very soon we're filming this or recording this, excuse me, on the 20th of June,
Right.
and you have a gig coming up on the 29th of June. You
I
you
know.
you solo at the Pocono. Where is it now?
It's called it's in Stroudsburg, Pennsylvania, on the 29th of June, at the Pocono Cinema Theater, and Cultural Center.
Yeah,
If
you're
if
gonna
you
learn.
go,
You're gonna
yeah,
learn this about me. I can't read my own handwriting. That's why I asked you to say it.
Pocono, yeah, it's called the Pocono Cinema Theater. It's an art house theater. It's a little, it's not one of the big cineplexes. It's got a couple of movie theaters in it, and they do various cultural, things of cultural import that they can't do at the mall, at the
Right.
Cineplex, and they can show movies that are little indies, that are worthwhile, but they're not going to get the splash that a great big summer blockbuster will get.
Right.
So foreign movies, independent films. I did one with Karen Allen, um, called A Stage of Twilight, which was terrific. It's a terrific film. It may be the very best piece of acting that I've ever done.
Wow.
It's called A Stage of Twilight, and I think you can watch it now on Netflix or something like that. You can Google it.
Hmm.
But they showed it at that theater, a Pocono Cinema Theater.
Hmm.
They they showed it to a live theater audience, and then there was a talk back, question and answer session with the writer director Sarah Schwab. So they do, they serve a function that other movie theaters can't.
Yeah, it's a vital function though. And Strasbourg is a cool town. Is it going to be just yourself on guitar?
Stroudsburg. Yeah, it's well,
Stroudsburg's
yeah,
a cool town. I've been
yeah.
there.
This
Yeah.
is I've never. I don't think I've ever been there.
Well, you're going to find out in 9 days. It's a cool
I'm
town.
going to find out just how cool this town is.
Yes.
But again, the money is for the theater. This is an event that I'm going to tell stories. I'm going to sing a bunch of songs. I'll read some of my poetry. Uh, and I want to open it up to like I have with you here, this question and answer. If people in the audience have questions, I want it to be a kind of a conversation, as opposed to me presenting. You know, it's completely packaged and polished and presented, and that's it.
Yeah.
I'm
So there'll be interaction with the audience.
Yeah,
Yeah.
yeah.
And
Well,
they could talk about anything, I'm assuming, too. Yeah.
yeah, whatever they want to bring up.
Hmm.
You know, it's an interesting. I'm always interested in how interested people are in the acting profession, and I really do hope that I'm not the last generation of performers who still do it live, in the flesh, and haven't been reproduced by AI.
Yeah.
Although I don't know, you can't tell. I might be AI right now.
I am AI. I'm actually, Tom is out mowing the lawn.
I'm not. I'm not sure that. I'm not sure that. I'm not sure. There's a glitch in the matrix here.
I
Oh, black cat.
was going to ask you about can they go right to the Poconos? I can't, my handwriting is awful. You're going to learn this in the hard way in the next month or two, but,
Can they go to
the
they can go
Poconos, what is it again?
Pocono, the Pocono Cinema Theater?
Oh, see, I'm looking at cinnamon. Horrible. I should have been a doctor with my handwriting, though.
It's not the Cinnamon Theater.
Yeah.
It, that's a different place. That's
Yeah.
that's a that's the adult bookstore down the
So
road.
the Pocono Cinema Theater and Cultural Center.
Yeah, yeah, yeah.
And
But you can go. I'm sure if you type in Pocono Cinema Theater, you'll get the website, and
Yeah.
the website will show you. You can order tickets
Yeah.
while they're still available.
I told you before we started recording that I'm a lazy bastard, and I usually take a week or so to get a podcast edited and up, but I'm going to try my best to get it up Saturday the 21st so people can have 8 days to go out and
Yeah, that would be
'Cause
useful.
it does benefit the center itself, and as you articulated it brings eyeballs onto lesser known, or less widely dispersed films.
I think it's a good thing. It just
Yeah.
brings more voices, more. I don't know where those films, how far you'd have to drive to see those things if you know, theaters like that are hanging on by their fingernails.
Right.
Because they pay heat, they pay air conditioning, they pay staff, they pay taxes,
Mhm.
all the
Uh,
rest of it.
I'm sure they appreciate you
And they
coming
don't,
down there and doing
and
this
they
for
don't
them.
have 6 or 8 screens showing,
Yeah,
the latest,
the latest Marvel Entertainment blockbuster. Yeah,
ex-
some of the best movies I've ever seen, or my favorite movies of all time, a lot of them are sleepers.
yeah,
There's a movie
yeah.
called Mac. I don't know if you ever saw it with John Turturro. You got to check it out if you haven't seen it.
Shawshank was a sleeper.
Yeah,
It opened in the movie theaters and closed in like 3 weeks. It cost $25 million to make and earned back 16 domestic.
Mm,
So it was technically a flop,
yeah,
and it was discovered through the video market. I mean, it came out in video, and it was nominated for 7 Academy Awards and all of this stuff. So Ted Turner put it on his network, Turner Classic Movies, like once a week for a year. And people discovered it. And the same thing is true of The Wizard of Oz. The same thing is true of Casablanca. These movies, they opened and they closed.
Mm-hmm.
And that,
it's a Wonderful Life, which a lot of people don't.
It's a Wonderful Life was a bomb.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Mm-hmm.
It wasn't until they got discovered by, they started playing it every year.
Yeah.
At Christmas time, and then it, little by little, it became a Christmas tradition.
Yeah. In New York City, I grew up in New York City, and I remember as a kid, it would come on at like 1:00 in the morning from Christmas Eve into Christmas morning on Channel 5.
The Miracle on 34th Street.
Yeah, same thing. And it's another great sleeper. Just to wrap the musical aspect of this conversation up.
What's that?
Another sleeper that I love movie. One Trick Pony by Paul Simon.
Oh, wow.
Yeah. Check it out if you haven't seen it. It's an awesome movie.
He never made another movie.
No, he did a Broadway show, though, the Cape Man.
Right. I think opened and closed, too.
Yeah, it had a fair amount of success for a little while.
It's like Willie Nelson did the Red-Haired Stranger. And then immediately went back to I'm going to stick to music. But it's I would agree. It's a remarkable thing. And now these days, I don't know what's the future holds, but if a movie doesn't do enough box office in the first weekend, they just yank it.
Yeah.
They just yank it. It's gone, and it shows up on Netflix or
The most recent example of what you just said is Snow White. Didn't they spend a fortune on that movie, and it just tanked right from the first weekend? But
again, it's like, how do you know? You left it in the theaters for 10 minutes. No, nobody got it. I will say that those theater tickets are getting extraordinarily expensive. So maybe that's part of the problem too.
Well, I know you're still in demand for movies and TV, but would you consider going back to Broadway if the role was correct or a good role?
Sure.
Yeah.
Sure. I'm not done.
Oh no, it's definitely not done. Yeah.
I mean, as long as my health holds up, I seem to have all my marbles. I'm doing a movie now. I'm going to do a film coming up the end of July, beginning of August, in New York, called The Last Day of Byron Bray, a short film, like a 15-minute film.
Oh, sweet.
For the festivals and what have you. It's just this little vignette that I read and I liked, and they made an offer, and I said yeah. So
good for you.
So there you go.
Always got to keep your hand in it, my friend.
I do. You gotta. Don't you feel like a shark sometimes? It's like if I stop moving,
somebody will take aim at you. Yeah.
Yeah. Well, sharks have to keep moving forward, or they.
Well, a lot of it has to do with the fact that you're a very versatile actor, and you have a lot of talent. So that's what keeps you working more than anything,
Appreciate it.
And thank you for wearing the uniform. We both wore the same shirt today.
We did. Well, we called each other.
Mine's a double XL, but So I'm going to try this one more time.
Okay.
The Poconos Cinema, Theater, and Cultural Center in Stroudsburg, PA, on June 29th. There'll be a link to it in the show notes. Whether you're listening to us on Spotify or Apple or watching us on YouTube or Rumble, you have time, because I'm going to try my best to get this out tomorrow So you'll have 8 days to
No,
get
it's
your
not
tickets,
good.
and
Good luck.
and check out Bill and think of questions to ask him while you're in the audience. So
Yeah,
yeah,
yeah. I mean, show up and say hello, and it should be a fun night.
yes, at the very least, you'll enjoy his music.
And if you don't like it, it'll be over before you know it.
All right, Mr. Sadler, thank you so much for being on the Gritty Hour. And I'm going to stop recording, but stay on the thing because I have to tell you something
Okay.
off the air. So thank you again, and have a good gig next week.
Thank you.
All right.
Thank you.
All right.